on YouTube. I have no idea if this shit even works, but we're gonna try and see. I can't tell. Maybe we're live on YouTube. I don't know. I'm trying here. Oh yes, nope, yep. Maybe we are. It says live. It says live. So you know what? We're just gonna go with it and interrupt everybody's Wednesday night. We're going live here on Almost Famous Magazine's The Hang. And apparently, because I'm not good at new math, and obviously this youngster is exceptional at the calculations to figure out that it's his sixth time being here. He's a man that needs absolutely no introduction, but well, fuck it. I'm going to introduce him anyway because it's kind of like what you have to do on one of these things. So, look, I had to. We've had him on so many times. I had to go to Wikipedia to find information to talk about him. My God, Wikipedia is interesting. In a past life, he was an up-and-coming real estate agent who decided to make a career in music. So he decided to name all of his bands like For Sale, Foreclosure. For a brief moment, he was a slumlord. And unbeknownst to many, he played tambourine in the Grateful Dead. I know he looks super young. He was known as the Sixth Beatle, but he never made it into a single damn documentary. And he got his wings clipped, so he landed outside of the Eagles. The man, the myth, and the legend in Paul's mind, Gizz Lazlo. Happy belated birthday, brother.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Jeez, you lied more than my fucking ex-girlfriend.
Well, because it's a special occasion. We certainly don't do this regularly. I actually, after going to something and having a margarita and a half, I was going to go for wine, but I thought that might be too classy for us. So I went with, I went in vodka and orange juice for tonight. So
Nice. Salute.
Mm. I do what I can. I'm only able, or I may be disabled, but you never know. How you been?
Good, man. Good. It's just been working a lot on GizFest and the releases of these two records, and trying to rehearse with Wyrmwood for these shows we got coming up, and just trying to stay busy doing the podcast. It's you know, and then with my birthday, just got to fit in my drinking.
Well, and I thought maybe, I mean, that's a pretty extensive list. I just thought maybe you were hungover. You that's a lot to accomplish in your state. I've got to admit. I know you had a big, an interesting little birthday celebration Monday night with Paul and your guests on the podcast. I'm really trying to figure out the whole motif this season. I mean, I love tuning in and going. I think the backdrop. I think what happened. Let's be honest, because I saw him. What's that little guy's name? The little guy who dresses up Poof the Magic Dragon, the Magic Dragon dude. He's got the same motif in his outfit, and now I see it in the backdrop with you and Paul. And I'm really thinking we need to get you a set decorator. I'm just saying.
We're
I
working
might.
on
I
it.
might actually.
We're working on the new set, and he's been so busy, with his work, and I've been busy, trying to do my thing
Paul
here.
works.
And yeah, he has his fabrication company, and we built a
Oh,
new studio.
wait. He's has a fabrication. I just thought he fabricated the words out of his mouth. I didn't realize he actually made things.
Eh, I don't even think he does. I think his workers do. He just sits in his office and sips on tea now that he's kind of sober.
He's he's not what Cali sober. He's just Paul sober. I
Yeah,
think we
yeah,
call it
yeah.
Pober. We'll call it Pober.
I mean,
Pober. Pober. It's Paul sober.
it's just, oh man, it's just it's insane when you go to our studio. It's insane. There's always people there. There's so many things happening, and by the time I get there, it's I just set up, and then we do our show, and it and then once the show's done, I'm done. I try not to drink as much anymore, but you know it depends on who the guest is nowadays. But it gets pretty hectic, and then I just as soon as we're done, I just want to go home. I I don't know what it is. Now that I'm 55, I just want to sleep.
Wait,
You
wait,
know.
wait, wait. 55. 50. Wait,
Hmm.
wait, 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 wait. First of all, now I'm not great at math. I had to get a slide ruler out because the kids do it a different way these days.
Yeah.
But I thought it was 32. Where did I go
Yeah.
wrong? I really messed up the math. It's I mean, it's whatever you're using for a moisturizer is preserving you well.
Twisted tea. uh,
well, well, okay. So, I've got questions because there's some things we haven't talked about. I mean, besides drinking and drinking and drinking. Um, Wormwood, they've
mhm,
got an EP, a new EP out, Second Chances.
mhm.
Look, I watched it. You're on, that, and you're on YouTube with it. I really didn't understand the commercials I was getting in between your videos, but that's a whole other story. Obviously, the targeting is off. Wormwood, I want to know the history. I want to know the history of Wormwood, please.
We started in 2021. The pandemic was going on. I couldn't tour. An old friend of mine. I've known him since I believe he was. He says he was like 16 the first time he saw one of my old bands, and he was just a really cool kid. And then in 2021, I was on Facebook and I saw him playing acoustic guitar uh, in his kitchen, and he just recorded the song, just music. So I felt inclined to send him a message and tell him, hey, this is a great song. You should send it to me, and let's collaborate. The next day, he sent me a completely different song called. It was just music. So I heard it. I think it was three times. Listened to it once. The second time I listened to it, I'd already had ideas of melodies in my head. By the third and fourth times I listened to the song, pen to paper, I was writing lyrics, and I was already sitting in my recording studio. So I just went in and recorded, all these the lead vocals, and then do what I do with my recordings, double and add harmonies and oohs and ahs and stuff. And 4 hours later, I was done with it. I sent it back to him. He was completely impressed by it. And the next day, he sent me another one, kind of like daring me to, like, hey, can you do that again? And within 4 days, we had our first four songs done. I think a month later, we released them. And uh, we just, he came up a few times and we just sat in my studio. We really didn't know each other. We just knew each other musically. And it, he is, Johnny Martin is one of the most amazing guitar players I've ever played with. The guy is just skilled. He can play punk rock, rock and roll, country, uh, hillbilly stuff. I mean, he's just an amazing guitar player. He just doesn't do bar chords like some guitar players do. He's an accomplished guitar player, and when you hear his melodies, for me, it's just easy to write and sing over them because it's just so beautifully, you know, the guitars are just beautifully written, and we don't have any drums and no bass. It's just acoustic guitar and me singing, and you and especially at the time when the pandemic was going, we really couldn't hang out with a lot of people, and my dad was sick at the time, so I didn't want too many people involved in this project. So it was very easy, and once things started opening up, it was easy for us just to go and play. An amp. He would just bring his amp and his guitar. I would just bring my microphone, and we sit down when we play, and I tell jokes. I make fun of him. He makes fun of me. Um, I usually I tell sound guys, he doesn't need a microphone, because he can barely sing. But I love him, and it's fun. the The reason that we wrote so many songs this time we've been together is, they're all heartbreak songs. And I've since I've played with him, he's been with maybe 4 or 5 different women, and they're just crazy. They just, they're not good relationships. To me, I don't think they're good relationships for him. There's always, you know, fighting and shit going on, and which makes for good, songs. And then I was in a relationship at the time that, in my mind, I thought was, great, but on the outside, it really wasn't. And so I wrote, I kept writing and writing and writing about his relationships, about my relationship. And, again, they're just heartbreak songs. People liked them at the shows. We started playing more and more shows. We started, traveling outside of California, and people liked it. And it is a little different
Did you have to
from.
take the ankle bracelet off to do that?
He actually had one at one point, and we had to wait, until the guy came off so he could, come up. But like I love the guy. He's just, he's just trouble. He's just trouble. And
Well, that's how
but
he got the ankle bracelet,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah. But like again, I can never, say enough about how much of a brilliant guitar player he is. He just writes these amazing, beautiful melodies on guitar, and it just makes me want to sing, and sing clearer and softer and with more emotion. And hey, what's going on with your lights now, huh, buddy? You got your
Yeah,
flashlight
I know.
went
Well,
off?
it's no, that's called Internet of Things and a timer. So
Uh,
look, you got
thought
me
I
out.
thought that
You got me
tornado
out
finally
late
hit.
tonight. No, that was well, that's look. I'm no weather caster, and if weather forecasters were surgeons, most of us would be dead because they'd get it wrong. But no, I was lucky enough not to have that last night. But my the light in here is a timer, and I'm up past my bedtime. I mean, the only time that I ever get online doing something like this, and is usually on a Monday night.
Hmm.
So it's a special occasion. It's almost like Christmas, except without the tree, and I'm Jewish. So I guess those are two disqualifiers. But
So you got 7 flashlights, right?
yeah, I got eight
Oh,
flashlights illuminating the whole thing. Yeah. So okay, so the new EP. I mean, which is your favorite song, and why would someone want to listen to it? Tell me why someone would want to listen to that specific song to. I've been drinking. It's a slong now, not to be mistaken with the Yiddish schlong, which would just make it all a big dick. But what this is always doesn't go well when I'm drinking. So I'm not as good as you with this, Gizz. You're much better with this than I am. The drinking thing on recording. But which is the song on the EP that people should gravitate toward first?
the whole reason that Johnny and I decided to even release this EP was because uh, we recorded a song almost 2 years ago for a Doughboys tribute record, and uh, he and I chose "Happy Home" and off of "Happy Accidents." And I love the original song. Everybody knows I'm a huge Doughboys fan, and I really wanted to be on this Doughboys tribute. So Foreclosure actually got on it too. Late last year when we did the Take Two EP, we released the Doughboys song on that we had recorded for the tribute, because evidently the person who was going to do this tribute record, um, I I don't know. He just didn't get his shit together, and he moved away from where he was, quit his bands. He a girl from his past, I guess, came back into his life, and he just kind of gave up on it and left a lot of people, like, with all these songs that they'd recorded. I even think Down by Law, they just went and released their song too. So when he and we started playing around together late last year. We started playing some shows, and we discussed like, maybe we should just release that song. And then we had two other songs that we had, written and recorded about the same time, and they kind of sounded very sound wise and sonic wise. They sounded very similar. So it was like, oh, these sound like we recorded them at the same time. So why don't we put these two songs with that song? And I think the day that I handed everything in uh, to be distributed online, there was one song that I really like. I don't know why. We recorded it maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and we've never played it live. It's just a recording. And I was like, yeah, let's just do four songs instead of three. So we, at the last minute, we just threw that song on there. That one was called Phantom Echo. The other two songs are um, One Good Night and Ripped Pages. And again, they're heartbreak songs, so everything kind of fits. But Happy Home, it's one of my favorite Doughboy songs, and to be able to record it, and we mixed it with Patrick Burkholder at the pawn shop in Van Nuys. And when we finished it, I actually had a chance to sit down with John Kastner, who wrote it, and he listened to it and he was just amazed by it. And he actually said, you guys did a better version than we did. So to me, being a huge fan, to hear that from the original songwriter was just, wow, amazing. So that's
Did
my
Paul
favorite song, and,
fabricate
and
that?
that's one. Yeah.
Did Paul fabricate that? That sounds a little too. That sounds a little too.
Paul's got nothing to
You
do with
did
nothing.
you did better than the Doughboys on the original. And my only disappointment is I was really expecting a Buford tribute album. So I thought it would just all be Buford songs. And here I was, I was telling Sharif there's going to be this big Buford tribute, and nope, never happened. So. Uh, but my fingers crossed. I hope for the best that maybe that'll happen. Um, how'd you come up with the name Wormwood? By the way, I don't. I want to know what that means. Wormwood. Was it a worm
Well,
in the wood? Were you out together
it's
in the woods? Were you camping? Was there bear spray involved?
there was a many years ago, when I was really involved with my mom and dad's church. I played on Sundays drums or sang, and the pastor that they had, Pastor John Smizer, was a really good friend of mine, and we went to lunch a lot and just sat down and talked. There was a moment in my life where I I just needed to talk to somebody, and I was really comfortable talking to Pastor John. And uh, through all the little lunches that we would have, he turned me on to a C.S. Lewis book called The Screw Tape Letters. And uh, that book is pretty much a bunch of stories that were released in the 40s, I believe, in the New York Times. And they were just like little letters, from Screw Tape to Wormwood, two characters. And from the way that I gathered those stories, it was like the devil trying to brag to God that he was stealing all these souls, and so when it came time uh, to, I actually, right around that time in 2019, I started a band, well, helped form a band in Australia. They were members of Dementia 13 from Brisbane, Australia, and Rob Dementia um, sent me some songs. I was in a bad way, and again, I'm not ashamed of anything I've done in my life. I got locked up on a 5150 for trying to hurt myself. And when I got out, a couple of days later, he messaged me on Facebook, and just like with Wormwood, he sent me some songs, and I wrote lyrics and sang them, and we released our first record in 2020 or in 2019, called Chasing Voices, and those were the first four songs that actually made me look at what I was doing to myself, how I was dealing with the death of someone I truly loved. And um, through that, it just, you know, we wrote another record, called The Fall of Summer, which started as a concept record, and then that one led into Theme from a Funeral Home, and then last Friday we released The Rise of Ravana. So this is part 4 of this concept record about two people, a guy named Gershom and a woman named Summer, and Summer's sister Ravana, and it's a big big story, and luckily I got to you know collaborate with Rob and write these amazing songs, these punk metal tunes, and so I when we were looking for a name, I was like, Screw Tape, but with a K, not a C. A lot of people, give me shit about it. Oh, it's like
That's where I
screw.
was confused.
Yeah, like oh,
That's where I was confused. I'm like, wait a minute, that book, that's not
mhm.
how they spelled it. But now I
Yeah,
see a
but
running theme.
right. And then Wormwood as well. The first O has two umlauts over it, so KO or OK, whichever way you want to do it. But you know, it was just like when we were trying to look for a name for my this Australian band. It was like let's go with Screw Tape, and the guys were totally for it. And then when Johnny and I started this band, kind of kiddingly, I was like, "Hey, how about Wormwood?" And he really liked it, and because we could have gone with Johnny and Gizz, or Gizz and Johnny, or Lazlo and Martin, but it was like,
Lazlo and Martin, right?
uh,
Because we expect to see you playing the Catskills.
so you know,
Lazlo and Martin doing two
except
nights on the main shows a night on the main stage
uh,
for the dinner crowd in the
free
Catskills.
moonshine for everyone. But
Martin.
again, like
That's
I said,
well, that's that could be a law. It could be a law firm. Maybe it's Lazlo and Martin's the law firm.
what was what was the Three Stooges lawyer? Cheatham, uh, Doom, Cheatham, and Howe, something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
But
Oh.
it was Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. That was it. But going back to it, like once we had Screw Tape, and then we had Wormwood. It was almost like you know, I I owe that time to John Smizer. He passed away last year, and we shared the same birthday. He was an old Vietnam vet, and he was an honest pastor. So many pastors that I've dealt with after him, not so honest. Like very damaging to me. And I just a lot of bullshit that came out of their mouths,
Oh.
and then the way they treated their congregation, and just like, nah, it damaged my faith, and but I always had it. If I ever had any questions, I could always, message John or call him or text him, and he was always there. So it was kind of like again, I just owe him a lot that, I named these two bands after this book, and they have the songs have nothing to do with the book, but when there are times when people write me, or if I'm playing a show and they go, "Hey, did you get this from the C.S. Lewis book?" And yeah, I did. And I tell them about
Well,
I'm in another band called Screw Tape. Then they're like, "Wow, dude, that's actually kind of cool."
and then I can only imagine the people come up to you and go, "Wow, you've got your C.S. Lewis band," and then you named all your other bands from the California Real Estate License Exam Prep Test. So
I
we
did have
really
a
need to
guy.
expand your reading. Your reading.
Shit, I just looked at the pictures. Um, there was a guy that actually he came to see us at a show. I think it was in Vegas, and after the show, he came over, bought me a drink, and he's like, "So," and again, I've never met you face to face. We know each other online and phone calls and shit, but I've never shook your hand. But this guy, just the way he was, like he had your kind of sense of humor, because he was like, "Hey man, so what's your other band going to be called? Narnia?" Like, Jesus Christ, dude! Like, at
Nice,
least you do know who C.S.
nice.
Lewis is,
Hey, give him credit for that. Now this weekend is GizFest. I mean, GizFest. Is this going to be like a guar show? I mean, do people need to bring raincoats? I mean, what's the whole plan for the weekend? Will there
uh,
be bodily fluids exchanged amongst strangers? I mean,
oh,
how
dude,
should people prepare to survive this?
I'm 55 now, man. There ain't no jizz left. It's fucking dust.
It's all dried up. Suddenly, Giz is like the desert.
uh, this weekend is we have 4 shows in 3 days. Saturday or Friday night, we're playing at Music Garden LA in Highland Park. It's actually right down the street from where Paul lives. I've never been to the place, but I've heard about it
In
from
a
a bunch of
van
my
down at the end of the
friends.
street, right?
Pretty much, I guess. And the promoter, he booked Paul and I at a comedy gig, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I do these other types of shows," and this is, I think, this second or third show that he's done for me. And I told him, when I do a show or somebody, a promoter contacts me and say, "Hey, I want to do a show with you," I immediately go, "Well, if we're gonna do it, do you have the lineup already?" And, "Oh no, let me pad the lineup, with you guys." I always, go, if it's gonna be Wormwood, I have a bunch of friends who I love sharing the stage with, and we play different shows together, and let me put the lineup together, because to me it's more fun when it's a bunch of my friends on stage, and we can just hang out, party, and play music together. So
And
Friday
Giz on
night,
one another.
so Friday night, it's we have Big Rob from Southpaw. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can get that on there. There we go. Uh, been hanging out with him a
I
lot.
thought you said South Park.
And the shit,
I thought you said
you got
South Park.
you got to get your ears checked. Uh,
Yeah, well,
but
my ears are older than yours. Uh,
but Big Rob, he's really cool. His voice is very reminiscent of a band called Leatherface from Sunderland, England. He sounds like Frankie Stubbs a lot, at least to me. And I love his voice. I love his music. And he does a full band, a punk band, 3 piece, and he's got this acoustic thing he does now. So I wanted him on the show, and then for Friday night, another friend of mine, Mario Castaneda from the Soaring Blackbirds. He's doing an acoustic set. Uh, uh, Kyle Wyman, uh, the first comedy show that I did with Paul, he was one of the artists that played that night, and I was like, wow, I love this guy, and I love his music, and I love his band. So he's doing an acoustic set as well with his band Wyman and the Wolves, and then us, Wormwood headlining. Saturday we got 2 shows. The first one is at 4 in the afternoon. It's at my buddy Crash's place. He does a smoky sermon barbecue just about every Saturday in his front yard, and John and I have played probably a dozen times now since 2021. His place was actually the very first show we ever did, in front of people, and it was really cool. And he invites us back. I've done 3 or 4 birthdays now there, and this is part of my birthday celebration. So Saturday at 4, and then at 8 o'clock, we're doing another show up in Santa Clarita with my friend's band, um, Angela's Crest. So that show's going to be kind of weird because there's a funk band opening, a rock and roll band, and then like a metal band, and then us, and we're closing the night out with acoustic music. So it's going to be kind of
well,
weird. Like,
since you'll be doing Gregorian chants, I'm sure everyone is going to be so like they're just going to be rah rah at that point with the Gregorian
I,
chants.
if they even stick around, I'm not. You know,
Well, I mean,
I'm
look,
hoping
if
I'm
you were on
hoping for the
first,
best,
I'd be
but
concerned about the traffic. I mean, you are in California. I mean, it could take 9 hours to get from point A to point B, and you're only 3 blocks away. I mean, that is a well-known fact.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, and
And
then
then, and
Sunday. So what's
then
going on Sunday?
Sunday is actually the big show, GizFest. My friend Matthew Lucker up at Transplants in Palmdale. He runs or owns runs. You know, he's the founder of this club called Transplants, and in my opinion, it is the best venue to play in the United States. You know, I've played all over the world. It reminds me of Europe. The stage is just it's perfect. The sound is always great. He feeds you. He gives me drinks. Um, just they record you and then they give you the stems afterwards, so you can do a live album if you want or release singles, live singles, and just the whole thing. It's a brewery and it's a venue, and they just treat you well. You feel, you know, you feel like an actual musician, like a professional. You know, you get there and they just treat they roll out the red carpet, and I think that's the way it should be. You know.
A couple of things. Number one, I thought you were professional. I really hope you weren't lying to me the whole time. And B, do you feel like you're in Europe because you're the one wearing the lederhosen?
No, no. I wear my lederhosen in private,
Oh, okay.
and that's just for my OnlyFan. And
Will Paul be there in a drendel?
that's up to him. I don't dress him. I don't dress that little leprechaun. Uh, but you know, just the way the atmosphere. You walk in, everything is painted. There's these, you know, characters that, you know, very, you know, transplantish, you know, and I know the artist who paints all that, this Brian, and it's just, you know, again, you walk in and it's a venue, it's a concert, you know, it's like a concert hall. It's not a dive bar. It's not a, you know, it's not a bar with a stage or, you know, an outdoor,
It
you
has no
know,
stage.
thing. Yeah,
What do you perform in
it's
the men's
just
room? What, they got no stage?
yeah. No, I'm saying the Transplants has an actual stage. You know,
Oh, okay,
it's
okay, okay.
you know it's not like other clubs that you play at, and you know it's just you you can't, you know, you're on the floor in a bar. You know, you can set your beer down and it's on the bar. You know, this is an actual venue. You know,
All right.
and it's just amazing. You go there and you you know, I hate to say the word concert, but that's what you feel like. You feel like you're at a concert. You know, it's not, you're not at a you know, playing a gig at some fucking piece of shit
So,
bar that
so what you're saying is
you,
half the ticket price goes to Ticketmaster, and there's some chick behind you who doesn't want to be there talking with her girlfriend the whole time and not paying attention to the music. That's what a concert is these days.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so all right, I got three words for you for success this weekend. Heed my words, my dear friend. Uh, Pacing, pacing, and pacing.
No.
This is a marathon, not a sprint. Because if
Uh,
you make it to number 56, although that math is a little harder, I'll try and be out there next year to experience this, and I'll bring a raincoat and what else I need to keep it all off me. But um, pacing, pacing. We're not getting younger. We're only aging gracefully. What's coming up
dis
with foreclosure? What?
disgracefully. We're
Giz?
aging
Yes.
disgracefully.
Very disgracefully. All right. So what's going on with foreclosure? Are you guys have you named a new EP, a new album, a new concept outside of real estate? What's going on with that group?
Well, two of the guys in the band, both of our guitar players, Lewis and Mark, you know, had some medical issues late last year, early this year.
Well, it's
They're
because you
both.
broke one of their arms, didn't you?
I,
I'm
I
sorry.
did.
You got look.
I
I
didn't do it.
drank for
I
this
didn't.
occasion, and now I'm just spilling whatever I read on Wikipedia. It's crazy. It's crazy that Wikipedia, just says things.
No, we had to cancel the tour in January, and then it just everything got pushed back, and we're finally at the end of May 24th. We're since Punk Rock Bowling's not happening this year, Bill from Doctor Strange Records decided to put something together called Summer Bash out in Pomona at the Cathedral. It's a 2 night festival. A lot of bands, from all over the country are playing, and he asked us to do Sunday afternoon. So I think we go on stage at like 3 o'clock. We're not the opening band, so that's cool. And the Freeze are playing at my old band, Sloppy Seconds, DI, the Skulls, Mainliners. There's just tons of really cool bands, and a lot of bands I've heard of but have never gotten to see. So I plan on being there for both nights and just immersing myself
And
in
when is
music.
that again?
May
Where's that?
23rd and 24th in Pomona, California, at the Cathedral, and it's called Summer Bash, Doctor Strange Summer Bash. So, uh,
I still have a Las Vegas hotel room reserved. Not that they're going to do punk rock bowling, but I was hoping maybe the hotel went out of business before I had to make the effort to unbook the room. Don't know if I'll make it out there or anywhere else this year. But maybe that could be an option. I can't make any promises as of today, but you never know about tomorrow. You've got a record label.
yeah.
Like, what's that about? Like, is that have you become a multi-bazillionaire? Are you the next like P Diddy or Sean Combs or one of these big moguls, one of these guys who builds this record label, and the next thing you know, they're just too good for us? I mean, little people.
I started my record label in 2000, um, because at the time, when at the end of '99, there was so much shit happening, and record labels weren't doing as much as they did back when I first, started getting signed to record labels in the late '80s and early '90s. You know, labels actually paid, for your recordings. They paid for your flights to go on tour, and they helped you a lot. They supported the bands a lot more. In 2000, I had an idea where I had spent 10 years on the road. I've met so many bands and made so many friends, and I put together a compilation, and it was called Allied Punks Invade. It was a 2 disc set, and uh, it was just every band that I was in, or bands that I've met, and it was just like the best songs from that band that I thought were. I love that song, and I asked, hey, can I put that on my comp? Yeah, sure, go ahead. So I started my own label, and just it was also a way just to protect myself. If I ever do a record, I like to release it myself, and if somebody else wants to re-release it, then they license it from me, and I don't deal with any bullshit. And I tried releasing a couple of my friends' bands early on, and there's 2 bands that I signed to my label, paid for their manufacturing of their CD, and right before they were supposed to go on tour, they broke up, and I was left with a couple thousand CDs, and I was just like, I just don't trust bands. And they were European bands; they weren't even American bands, so it wasn't like I could drive or take a bus
Well,
somewhere.
and well, and now that you're going to do this Europe-esque show on Sunday, I hope you don't have PTSD from that experience. I mean,
Nah.
so the moral of the story is, kids, being a record mogul doesn't always guarantee you the life of Riley, um, and or get a bus ticket. To visit the band. You never know who you look. It's interesting because Steve Smith, Half a Dirty Vegas, he's in Squeeze. He did a TED talk recently about supporting small venues, and I think this is a good way to kind of wrap up our conversation. Um, you supporting small venues because you never know who you're going to see today in the corner of a bar, or maybe they have a slight stage, so you're not quite sitting at the bar.
Mhm.
Could be the next person you see in a stadium, but you got to see them when. And that's the most important thing. Supporting bands who are doing the job of being a professional musician. Giz is no amateur. Paul might think differently, but Giz is no amateur. But supporting them, because you never know that that show that you take in and have that experience could be literally the impetus, because you never know who else is in the room, that gets them to that next stage and that next stage. And then when you saw them for $20 during GizFest, they're now playing a $400 ticket in
Mhm.
Madison Square Gardens.
I,
You never know who that could be. So go see them when you can and enjoy it, because we have to support our smaller venues. We have to support our music community. And that's what really, if you're going to ask me, GizFest is really about. It's playing your ass off, pacing, playing your ass over a weekend at multiple different smaller venues and having people come out and support and show the love.
it is. I mean, that's why I do it every year, or I try to do it every year, is because I love just bringing my friends together and bringing all these bands together, my favorite bands of the previous year, and and just like letting all my friends get to see the bands that I've been talking about. Like I was lucky back in, what was that, in 92. I traveled up to San Francisco and went, or Berkeley, and went to Gilman Street, and I got to see Green Day. There were this, three guys that, were playing their asses off. A month later they're here in LA, or a couple months later they're here in LA. I got to play with them at Coconut Teaser, and got to know them. And then the same thing with the Offspring. Got to play with those guys many times. And like, and I always tell my friends, you got to see this band. Like with Green Day, when they played at Coconut Teaser here in Hollywood, I told every single one of my friends, you got to go to the show. You got to go to the show. You got to see Green Day. These guys are going to be bigger than the Ramones one day. And my friends are like, yeah, whatever, whatever, whatever. Here we are 30 years later, and they're bigger than the Ramones.
I think they got potential. I mean, I saw them before a football game. I think they got some potential. They'll make it one day. I promise. They will make it one day if people would just understand what they're about and accept the potential they have. I think there's a future for them. Uh,
See,
yeah.
the thing that pisses me off too is that a lot of my friends have turned their backs on them. Oh, they're fucking sellouts. Like, they're not sellouts. They got signed to a label that supported them. They keep doing what they're doing. They just got bigger. More people, love their music. And they didn't
Well,
change
and
their
they
sound.
retain control. No,
Yeah,
and they retain control. I mean, if you're gonna,
yeah.
if look to me, if you're gonna sell out, it's when you've sold your soul to lose control for the sake of the money, for the sake of the reward. You're giving everything else away. That's selling out, because you've sold out of any bit of integrity that you had, any
Yeah.
bit of artistic license, all that stuff. When you continue to work and then you take up the cause of the fans, the way they did, the way that Pearl Jam tried with Ticketmaster years ago, when you try to do things that keep it affordable and accessible, if people want to call you a sellout, then they don't even understand or value the music and the passion and the time and effort it took to put into it. So who's really the sellout? The
Mhm.
person who just wants a commercialized piece of shit. So,
Uh,
I
I totally agree, because most of the people that I know that are really on the sell out kick aren't in a band, or they're just fans of music. Oh, they sold out. Like, how do you know? You've never done it. Have you ever traveled in the back of a van with six other people? And not showering for days and days on end, but playing every night and making 20, $50, maybe $100, so you can get to the next town. No, you haven't. So what do you know what a fucking sellout is? Just because now they stay in nice hotels and get flown all over the fucking place, they're still fucking working their asses off. you know
I think I think that's called they earned it.
Yeah,
Call me
yeah,
crazy, call me
you
crazy.
know,
But you know, you put the blood, sweat, and tears, the thousands of hours. I think at some point you earn it, and
hmm,
the people who consider it a salad are just jealous.
yeah,
Like I'm
yeah,
not jealous of anyone who can get on the stage and perform because the best I can do is hack away at a piano in my house or
mm,
play some chords on a guitar, and I sound better the drunker I get. Because you know we love to create that own vision in our mind. But when you put forth the effort and focus to accomplish that goal, zero people in this world have any right to call you a sellout when they have yet to even try to reach for the brass ring on the way around the merry-go-round. So
exactly.
you know,
And you mentioned it earlier that, you know, at the Super Bowl this year, you know, I got really emotional when I saw Green Day because it was like, dude, I know these guys. You know, I met them. You know, I've every once in a while I bump into Mike, and he's such a nice guy. Doesn't come off as arrogant, and you know, he's just a nice guy. And we grew up in the same scene, and now here they are on national TV opening up the fucking Super Bowl. I was proud. I I think they're the first
yeah.
punk band to ever fucking play the Super Bowl. You know, and such a controversial one too with Bad Bunny and all that shit. You know, it's just like, man, I'm proud of these guys. Some of my friends who hate them because of what their politics are, it's like, oh, come on, dude, really? Now, now you don't like them because of that? Like, Jesus Christ, you know? Like,
Oh, I just want to know when they're going to be on the podcast with you and Paul.
dude, if I could get them, you know, there's a couple
What do you
of
mean if?
there's a
Set your
couple.
shoot high, buddy. Shoot
Ah,
high. Look, I you never know. It took me the day that I saw you perform was the day before that I saw the day before I saw was it Bad Cop was the very next day at Punk Rock Bowling a couple of years ago. And look where we are now.
mm,
Stacy's been on the podcast. Punk Rock Gives Back used that photo that I took. You gotta stay the course. So you know what?
but
I
but
don't want no bullshit. I
but
expect to see
see,
Green Day on your podcast because focus, determination, and you get there.
but see, this
You
is the
keep working.
difference. This is the difference between our podcasts. Is the fact that my Paul and my podcast, we're here to tell the stories of my friends whose bands aren't that popular. You know, everybody knows who Green Day is. Everybody knows who The Offspring is. You know, I'm sure if I asked Mike, he would do it. I'm sure if I asked Noodles, he would do our show. But everybody knows them. You know, I want to tell the story of my friends who've been, you know, in the trenches with me, you know, trying to make it for 30 fucking years, and they've never done a podcast, or you know, they did a magazine interview 20 years ago. You know, I want their story to live on forever, and that's why we do our show.
I'll give you that.
It's you know,
I'll give you that.
and like you know, there's been a couple times where, you know, friends of friends have say, hey, so and so, you know, you should ask so and so to do your show. It's like, well, dude, like everybody knows their story. You know, like we asked Monkey from the Addicts, and I, you know, sat down and talked to him, and he goes, "There's not much that I could say on your show that I haven't done on a thousand other podcasts or magazines, because I'm not really bringing anything new, and you know, we have a great friendship. You know, I played
All
in a
right.
band with him,
I'm
so
gonna challenge you, my
I
friend. I'm gonna challenge you because you know it's me.
mm,
There's always something new you can get to somebody to talk about. We're gonna round this out with the fact that if let's see, I've got one, two, three, 6 times you've been on, and I don't think we've had the same conversation twice.
I,
So you and Paul are creative enough, and you know Paul likes to ask about the random shit. So
mm,
perhaps the goal is get someone, maybe maybe you know them, maybe they're a little bit better known, but find the things that no one knows about, find the things that suddenly they say it on your podcast and tomorrow Rolling Stone's like, did you believe that this person said this? You never know. Give it a shot. I mean, I love learning the stories too. Everyone's got a story. You know what we do is we memorialize their story in their own words so that it's not actually coming from Wikipedia because that's a load of shit. Um, But I think you guys got it in you. I think because of those relationships and the vulnerability of those relationships, you could get someone on and start a conversation about something they've never talked before, and they walk away going, "Wait a minute, did we really talk about that?" I know you guys got it in you, so I'm going to challenge you
Yeah,
with
but
that.
then I'll probably get him in trouble. Yeah, real
In
quick,
case you get everybody in trouble, what does it
I
matter?
know, I
You're in
know that, I
trouble
know
all the
that, I
time. I
know
mean,
that. But
seriously, that's
but then
Gizz the Trouble Lazlo.
when you're talking about an artist who's established themselves and actually has a reputation, and then they talk to me and it's like, oh shit, yeah, he knows too much. So I don't want to fuck with that.
Well,
But I have to tell you that a couple weeks ago I was hanging out with a friend, and I was telling him about your show, and we watched a couple minutes of every episode I've done with you. But the one episode we actually watched the whole thing was when I did the tour run uh, episode with you with Mike Williamson from Junior Juggernaut. And
yeah.
my buddy, he was watching it. And he looks over at me, and goes, "I got to tell you, like you're very, you know, careful, and
Handsome.
you no, like you're very careful, and you actually let Mike do the talking. Like you could tell, like I've I've done this show before. I want Mike to shine on this." And he's, I'm actually really proud of you. Like you actually took a back seat and let him, drive the bus.
Without
I was like, yeah,
Without
I
naming
was
names,
very
I
proud of
think I
myself
got a
too.
text from them earlier. I have to book them for this, so I'm remiss. It's been a crazy week. And on that note, because it's getting a little late here for me, and I look, day job's calling. I need at least an hour or so sleep, brother. I love you, and I wish
I
I
love
could
you
help
too, brother.
celebrate you this weekend. One of these days, because most people don't even realize that the closest we've been in proximity is probably 200 feet, and that's not because of the restraining order. Um, it's because it's because of him playing the drums at Punk Rock Bowling. One of these days, I'll get to LA, or you guys book some dates out here, and we'll all we'll all get shit faced together. Again, happy belated birthday.
Thank you so
I
much,
have good
brother.
news and
Thank you.
bad news to end this though. I hit the live button, and I'm not entirely sure we did or not. So if I didn't, for some reason, this will be posted immediately after, before I go to bed. So this will be up on the internet so people can see it. Sometimes technology is our foe, not our friend. But I can't quite tell and do multiple things at the same time because I've been drinking, and that's an impairment. And well, I get a
Pussy,
pass for that. I know, but
pussy.
look,
I,
look, look.
I
I mean, I
I
could be
finished. I
drunk and
sucked this down a half an hour ago.
well, that, and I don't want to know who else you sucked, but that's a whole other story. Uh, fortunately, neither Paul nor Sharif were here. They get off scot free. But so, all right, brother. All the best this weekend. I
Thank you.
expect that there'll be, since you'll be getting the stems and seeds on Sunday, there'll be a live recording available sometime soon. You kind of gave that one out of the bag, and I'm going to hold you to it. Everyone else. Every now and then we do these things, and it's in an hour where I'm going to be drinking, and wow, I should have had more for dinner is all I can say. So I'm going to leave it at that. We have a great episode dropping on Friday with an amazing punk band out of Las Vegas. Now, a couple of things that we'll hit on here. And Gizz, I know, because of the way that things happen in my own existence, is that I got hooked up with a band for a podcast this coming week. And of course, the uh, connection, right? I don't know if you know Kevin Wilcox or not. Kevin leads the band Suburban Resistance out of Las Vegas, one of my favorite towns, because, well, ass juice, need we say
Uh-huh.
more? Um, Also grew up in Rochester, New York, maybe 20 minutes from where I lived.
Oh
And
wow.
we ended up knowing all the same people. It was one of those, somebody in Vegas said, "You got to get on this podcast." That's coming up on Friday with Kevin. We reminisce about being in proximity again, but never in the same place at the same time. But for some reason, Rochester keeps coming up. Or like when I interviewed Girl in a Coma, and you know how I do my research moments before I have to do this. Never knew
Mhm.
that they were in San Antonio, and
Huh.
I lived there too. So everybody, thanks for joining us. If this didn't go out live, that's my bad. I've been drinking. That's his Gizz fault. I will. I will post this immediately, and you can enjoy it in its unedited form, which is the chaos and lunacy that we always do. And maybe for number 7, lucky number 7, we'll come up with an idea that's way the fuck out of the box for an episode, because everybody, Gizz will be back. You watch. So,
That's right.
buddy, love you. Bye for
Love
now.
you too, brother.
Take it
Thank
easy,
you.
everyone.
And thanks to everybody out there.